Hi, everybody. I'm Mike the Man, and we are watching Case Closing. So, as I have previously stated, statements made by Katie Proudfoot are the most important ones to me because she is the one with the experiential memory from around the time that she claimed to have heard a third. She is the one who was there along with Sebastian, and everything that she says has the potential to leak any type of experiential memory that can help shine a light on what exactly took place. Now, she has heavily edited herself since the earlier interviews, and she has edited herself within the previous interviews as well. None of them are alike. There are similarities. Twice she talked about the third, and then she decided it would be better for her not to make it a thud anymore and turn it into a noise. These types of changes are highly sensitive. So even though this is a very highly edited version of the events, we can always focus on what she considers to be worth editing and necessary to be edited. Now, let's listen to a couple of things together.
Sebastian's mother said goodnight to her 15-year-old son. The next morning, Sebastian was gone.
Hey, Ernestine Juvenile. Being right now, 30 blonde hair, approximately 5 foot. I'm gonna turn down. I'm gonna be wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants. You know, those have a color autism.
Sebastian is tall and skinny, has a contagious smile, loves video games, loves cats.
So Sebastian is tall and skinny. I mean, he's 5'5", and what is the average height for 15-year-old? I don't know. I would think it is average or below average, right? Maybe he had a taller appearance because he is so undernourished, but well, he went through a growth spurt, right? Reportedly, meaning if he was alive, he may be tall and skinny right now. But how would she know what he would look like now? And as I've previously said, I believe he's no longer with us. Her language has indicated that in the past, and so has Chris Proudfoot's. So she doesn't seem to have that much of a need for details. You would expect her to say, he was 5'5" when I met when I was last around him, when I last saw him, but that could have changed. So he has a contagious smile. I haven't heard her say this before. I have heard Chris say he has a goofy smile. You cannot imitate it. And yes, we know he loves video games and he loves cats.
Cats.
Boundless amounts of energy. Sebastian reminds me of a deer prancing through the woods, enjoying the smell, the breeze, new things. That's my son.
You see how Seth talks about Sebastian, and I'm sure he himself cannot relate all the time to Sebastian. And he notices the things that are unique about him and different to him maybe, but he looks at it as a positive. And he says, that's my son. He misses the things that were different about him or unique about him, rather than saying he was awkward, he didn't get along with people. All of these things that make a person unique, whether they stand out to you that much when he is around you, they tend to be imprinted in your mind when a child is missing and no longer around. The memory is what's keeping him alive. And he is suddenly noticing all the little things that are unique about Sebastian, and that is expected. Seth, what he says, everything he says about his son is expected to be said, where he is completely honest, he's completely open, and whatever comes to his mind, he is not scared to say it because he has absolutely not a thing to hide.
February 25th, the day before Sebastian went missing, Chris was in Memphis at work.
So, the day before Sebastian went missing, Chris was in Memphis at work. Well, it was Sunday, so he wasn't working. The first thing she says is February 25th. She wants to get that date down. She doesn't mention it was Sunday. That would collide a little bit with the statement that Chris was in Memphis at work. People would ask, well, it's Sunday, only 3 hours away. Why didn't you drive down? Don't you miss your family? Anything to avoid future questions. Anything where people would be able to say, wait a minute, what about this? What about that? She's been watching my videos. She knows how I can dissect her statements, and she is avoiding it. She is avoiding anything where the public can notice what I have noticed and I have talked about. So she's telling us that February 25th was the day before. Again, it's alibi time, people. Remember, in the beginning we were told he was seen on the 26th. She sticks with the 26th. There was no way he went missing before. Nothing could have happened before midnight. Everything was really normal. That's what she's trying to tell us. And she's not revisiting the third. She is hinting at the noise. And some of you have wondered, is it a ruse? A ruse to hide the fact that there was a premeditated removal of Sebastian, a handover. Somebody, as Chris said, went into the house and took him. But what speaks against it is she introduced a fall twice, where she said that she asked him, did you fall out of bed? And then she said, don't let his face fall to the bottom of the feet. Also, an embedded admission from experiential memory, that he fell out of bed. He fell, his face hit the bottom, his face hit the floor. So no, I do not think it was a ruse. I understand the process of thinking, absolutely. I am asking myself all of these questions. But an analysis needs to withstand all of this. And I do not see a need to change it, any of it. The day before Sebastian went missing, Chris was in Memphis at work. The first thing she's telling everybody, he went missing on the 26th after midnight. And that Chris couldn't have been a part of it. You see, that was the conditioning from the very beginning, where we were told he couldn't have driven down there. She doesn't mention that silly 3-hour call again. For good reasons, because a lot of people asked, is that normal to talk for 3 hours? Why didn't he drive down there for the weekend if he missed her so much? If they miss each other so much, right? That would be a 3-hour drive and they could be together in person. Why wasn't he there? She's avoiding the CPS reports. Then, of course, there are these claims from a lot of people that he may have been ordered not to see Sebastian, not to be around him, or he knew he wouldn't be able not to beat him, chastise him, give him more reason to complain about him, scream and yell at him, as we have heard. And some of you have stated, Both of them are raging alcoholics who don't control themselves at all. They drink and they drink, they get drunker and drunker, and then Sebastian says something, and they maybe you heard how he yelled at Sebastian at Seth. Imagine how he yelled at Sebastian when he really gets annoyed with him. They didn't want him around. They treated him like he wasn't there. He was not supposed to say anything, be in the way, because Chris said, this guy is always in your face. He doesn't respect your space. He is telling you exactly why, in his opinion, Sebastian wound up missing, why he's no longer around. When they talk negatively about a missing child, they are giving you the reason why, in their opinion, happened what happened. The same with the Orson West adoptive father, who's talking about them being rambunctious, which is exactly what Chris said about Sebastian as well. He's rambunctious. Ah, that's why. That's why they had to disappear. They put it on themselves. They were so rambunctious. He had to kill them, right? Sebastian was so rambunctious. That's why Katie had to give him so much sleep aid that wound up taking, indirectly, in my opinion, his life. So Sebastian and I went to Texas Roadhouse. One more time. Okay. Where were we?
It's the day before Sebastian went missing. Chris was in Memphis at work. So Sebastian and I went to Texas Roadhouse.
They make it sound like it was only this particular day. Sebastian and I, she put Sebastian first. She has learned. And she mentioned his name twice now in the same sentence. Can you believe that? Once in the first sentence that he's twice, but twice in the this one, twice. Remember the earlier interviews where she didn't even mention him at all? She makes it sound like Chris was only gone for a day, so that day they went to the Texas Roadhouse. Of course, they did not really spend a lot of time and didn't have these types of dinner dates when, for lack of a better word. I doubt that she ever went with Sebastian alone to the Texas Roadhouse or anywhere when Chris was around. Chris wanted his food. Chris Foot was like, where's my spaghetti? Hurry up, cook. I don't know. But he was demanding. He would have not allowed her to spend extra time with him. And more than ever, we know about this now because Tony and Seth have hinted at that in their life. They spent no time with him. They didn't want to spend time with him. They spent time with each other. They are into each other. They like to drink together. Allegedly, they like to, they're into each other and not into Sebastian at all. And that relationship, that was threatened by Sebastian's presence. So she's telling us, okay, we went to Texas Roadhouse. I didn't want to make dinner, I guess, right? Because, no, he wasn't there for 3 weeks at that time. Those are things she is avoiding to mention. And she is very well scripted this time. This is almost like you're writing a monologue. Sorry. Monologue for a play. Reciting it. So Sebastian and I went to Texas Roadhouse because Chris was at work. True, it had something to do with it. But she is very self-aware and she understands how things come across. Chris is not self-aware at all. He appears that way at times when he is sticking to the script that Katie gave him, but otherwise, not at all. See, when you read this or when you hear this, it doesn't give that much space for questioning as her previous interviews have. Let's continue, people.
After dinner, right around 9 o'clock, he laid down. I heard a noise in his room. I said, I don't care what you're doing, but you gotta knock it off and you gotta go to bed. And he answered, yes, ma'am. I said, okay. And that was the last time that I spoke with Sebastian.
So, overkill on Sebastian. She's making up for all the times she didn't mention his name before. After dinner, right around 9 o'clock. She didn't say right after dinner. The dinner was Texas Roadhouse. When did they get home? At 7? Around 7? It's a 2-hour period. She goes past. She doesn't want to revisit because of my previous analyses. I am convinced of that. I have dissected it previously, that her statements indicated there was a huge quarrel. There was a big problem because Sebastian didn't want to go to sleep. He couldn't go to sleep. And she wanted to have alone time on the phone with her husband. The last thing she needed was to hear Sebastian in the back saying anything for Chris to hear. Chris was extremely agitated when he heard Sebastian in the back, when Sebastian was bragging about having breakfast. That angered him because he had no more control at the time. He wasn't able to come around, or didn't want to, because he had to avoid future CPS problems. And Sebastian was suddenly free air. He was able to do things. He was getting his breakfast. Now he's getting dinner at Texas Roadhouse. And he's shoveling it down, we can see that. After dinner, right around 9 o'clock. You see, it almost looks like right after dinner, but he doesn't say it directly. Right around 9 o'clock. We laid down. Did you lay down, Katie? You see, this avoids the 3-hour phone call completely. And it makes it sound as if she went to bed and Sebastian went to bed. We laid down. It's easy to say we. Include yourself. Give the impression that both of them laid down. But she didn't. She was ready to call Chris. I heard a noise in his room. Not from his room, but in his room. That's stronger. There is a noise in his room. Because she knows what that noise was. She knew he had fallen out of bed. It was a thud. It was strong. I said, I don't care what you're doing, but you gotta knock it off. What an interesting choice of words. Knock it off, right? Not cut it out. Because he got knocked off. He got knocked out of bed when he tossed and turned. He had all that sleep aid in him. All these chemicals. And he had just had a big meal in his stomach. He probably tossed and turned and tried to vomit. That's where my thinking, my thought process is going. And you gotta go to bed. Go to bed. How did she know he was not in his bed at that moment? What was that noise? How did she know that he wasn't in the bed. Is she telling us that? That is because he was next to the bed. He had fallen. And that was at 10 p.m., around 10 p.m., as she previously stated. Now it's all 9 o'clock. And he answered, "You know." "No, I don't know." I guess she said it so many times, by now we are supposed to know. So maybe she's talking to the audience that she already had. "Yes, ma'am." And I said, "Okay." Previously, she has not said anything about her replying at all. Except, "Did you fall out of bed?" But she does not want to revisit this part because I have dissected it and she knows that it indicates what happened to him, that he fell out of bed. And that was the last time that I spoke with Sebastian. Not the last time that I saw him. I believe that was the last time that she spoke with. She may have spoken to him afterwards. But did he say yes, ma'am, actually? Because whenever Katie says, "you know," she's expecting us to accept something as a fact. "No, I do not believe he said yes, ma'am." And she asked, "Did you fall out of bed?" In her previous interviews, she stated that. She may have gone in there and said and saw him and may have spoken to him. Maybe he was still alive. But then why didn't she call an ambulance? Because she, in my opinion, did not want any more problems. And that's what brings me now to a statement I will analyze a little bit more the next time. Katie Proudfoot said in one interview, give me just 1 second. And live about what, remember the 1 year anniversary of his disappearance interview, and live the life that he deserves to live. She's talking about he needs to come home and so on and so on, and live the life he should be experiencing life. And she said, and live the life that he deserves to live. And live. He's not alive. It's what she's telling us, that he deserves to live. What she is telling us is that the life he had under Chris and her was not worth living. And he didn't actually deserve to live like that. She convinced herself that Sebastian's life was not worth living and that his death was not that big of a deal. She is getting into this.
Let me take a look at my notes, yeah, because I just wrote some things down. Have you had, and I may have asked this and I forgot, Chris, my mind is sometimes mush. Have you had search dogs inside the house and outside?
Yes, I had. Yes, I was right.
And what did the dogs hit outside?
So, as you know, if anybody has followed Mr. Gray's, what he was talking about, the dog and the trail.
One moment, guys, it's gonna get good.
The scent and the overlay on the picture. So, they're anywhere from 13 to 18 different dogs. have been involved in this search. Now, on day
13 to 18 days for
there's
dogs.
5 dogs. 5. There's an audio dispatch tape that's been released. I don't know who released it. Whatever, I don't have it, but you'd have to dig it and find it. In that video.
Dig it again. Dig it. The bulldozer digging. That seems to be a theme. Something about digging is very sensitive here.
In that audio tape, you actually hear that the deputy sheriff does state that the dog hints for descent and takes over off to the retention pond and the construction site next door.
Okay.
Now, other dogs did the exact same thing. Now, am I going to say every single dog? No, but I do know of at least 3 dogs that went on the same scent trail, same path. The rest of the dogs, I'm not going to tell you that they are 100% honest and perfect and accurate because honestly, dogs are only probably 25% reliable
BS.
when it comes to a scent.
Nonsense.
Okay.
Now, 8 days, I've had dogs in my house the first 8 days. Into my house, outside my house, around my house, around the neighborhood. Oh, yeah.
So they've been there and, yeah, so they did, you're saying they did hit and they all went to that pond.
No, I didn't say all that. I just told you. I've had 13 to 18 dogs in my house or around my house.
Mm-hmm.
I told you 3 different dogs hit on the same path that go to that retention pond.
Right.
These PIs are not that bright. They don't know how to listen either. This is like a festival of the stupid.
I'm not going to say that every other dog.
Not every dog, but some dogs hit. Okay.
Right. So, but I want this to be crystal clear.
Okay.
So when people say every dog, that is not the case. 3 dogs went on the same path.
Okay.
That is all that we have on that. The rest of these dogs go in different directions.
So I think that kind of clears up the confusion, and this was what I was trying to share with you guys in the last couple of live streams. These questions kept coming up about the dogs didn't get a scent. The dogs did get a scent. I think some of the dogs, and Chris Proudfoot's confirming it here, 3 of the dogs of the 18 or so dogs handled by different search teams. So we had different search teams did hit on some kind of a scent, and they took it to that pond, and that's the pond that was drained and empty. But Chris Proudfoot cannot get out of his own way on this. Listen to this.
But it's all unreliable.
Understood. We do have a question from Michelle. Chris, was Ellie able to go in and search the cave they said had collapsed about 10 feet in? I haven't heard this.
Husband-wife aspect. You seem very protective of Katie and her having conversations with or without you. But like I said before you came on, I do believe that Katie is the one who, and I'm not saying it's because she knows what happened to Sebastian, but she was the last person that was with him. And so she does hold the most information, at least up until the point that he went missing.
Right.
What information do you think she holds?
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Well, then do me a favor. Let's just get to it.
Okay.
You see?
Don't pour gravy on the mashed potatoes.
That's the most important part to him, He wants to know what people know. He needs to fill in the blanks immediately. He is very preemptive. I have to give him that. From the very beginning. And that comes from Katie as well. The day before Sebastian went missing, Chris was in Memphis at work. Immediately alibi.
Just serve the stuff up.
Chris, I'm really trying to be respectful, and this is a very...
I am too, so please just get to it.
Okay.
No,
so
you're
we would really love to hear from Katie about his body language that day.
Yes.
We've heard from others who are not necessarily good sources about his body language at the bowling alley and his body language here and there. And so we're just really trying to pick up on Sebastian's mood.
I'm not sure I have seen anything from the bowling alley. I mean, I guess they have.
Because it could help us understand what led to him walking away off the front porch out the front door.
He didn't.
Well, that is something that
his brain is overloaded on this one. When a question gets too complicated, Chris is not able to. He needs to slow down and take the conversation back to something that he can understand.
She decides to answer, that's on her. But what I know...
Oh my gosh, your son is missing. Get on the phone. You know she's probably sitting right there, right? Didn't she say she was accompanying him? I'm moving this forward a little bit because he just is ornery and belligerent, in my opinion. He just goes round and round. But Seth brings up the fact that there's a rumor that the Chris Proudfoot family may have Sebastian, and Chris Proudfoot does address it. And I do want to try to be fair to Chris Proudfoot too, even though I just feel like he is not helping himself here, in my opinion. There's a reason people prefer Seth over Chris Proudfoot, and a lot of it is just behaviors like this, like what we're seeing, and the way that he talks to women, and it just makes me wonder how Sebastian was getting spoken to.
Absolutely.
Off the table, period. That's the same statement law enforcement has made. That's the same statement I'm going to tell you every single day in the day out.
Gave my son to your mother and brother. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that.
Say it one more time.
Do you not want to say that? But well, we can move on. So
No. I want to hear it.
There's a rumor out there, Chris.
There we go.
That your mama and your dad have Sebastian. It's been brought up to me.
Seth, you know darn good well you got a question about my...
I'm just asking.
You pick up the
phone. They take you somewhere to lead a boot camp or anything like that.
Why would he pick up the phone and call his mother? By the way, that is Seth now talking to Chris, saying there was a rumor that his parents have Sebastian.
Just thought I wouldn't accept it.
I don't think Seth is being accusatory. I think he's just trying to clear up a bunch of BS that's been online.
Right, and I'm trying, and I'm telling you, if he's had this suspicion, he's got my mother's phone number. He can pick up the phone and call her. She is not afraid to answer any questions.
Who wants to call your mama?
I said you. I don't want to talk to your mom. I want to talk to you, and I want to talk to Katie.
Well, it's real simple, Seth.
To put it to the rest.
You have seen the video footage of Seth on Sunday. Don't tell me you hadn't. I know you have. You sat in the room.
This has nothing to do with this video footage of 6 p.m. Nothing. Sebastian was still around. We're talking about later. Did his parents take Sebastian?
Oh, with all the agents.
No, they didn't show me the video footage, buddy.
So you didn't see, you weren't sitting in a room with law enforcement, the district attorney, when they showed you a video, when you wanted proof of life, saying that you hadn't seen proof since Friday.
Again, this is this has nothing to do with what they may have had involvement with afterwards. This is no longer about proof of life on Sunday. Seth received that.
Friday. Well, you've been at my house the first 3 damn days.
Chris, let Seth speak. Go ahead, Seth.
By that time, Seth already knew about all the abuse, and again, hey buddy, I don't feel it, bro.
Chris, they showed me video proof of him coming out of Texas Roadhouse on Sunday.
On a Sunday night. Yeah, you're damn right.
Just
Sunday night or Sunday evening, rather, because he wants to eliminate night. Night is sensitive to him. Night is sensitive to Chris. His parents' whereabouts afterwards, that night or the early morning hours. That's what we are talking about here.
Chris.
Seth, I got a problem with you sitting here making these accusations. Because if you got a problem with them, guess what?
Let's watch it.
Yes, he does have a problem with these accusations because they're hitting home and they need to be further investigated. And police has not done their job correctly, in my opinion.
Seth is trying to do is.
And the parent of a missing child, when they sense that police is not doing everything that they should be doing, it is absolutely natural that you want to get additional information and not just sit there and wait for them. And he has expressed it on TV that, hey, my son is still missing. My son is not here. When he was asked, how satisfied are you with the work law enforcement has been doing? He is not satisfied. And by the way, who said they saw Kathy Bowersox at Worshams that morning? Somebody said Crabtree? I don't know. I mean, people make up stuff all the time. But if so, I would like to know if it was him who passed it on or what. You guys, when you bring something to my attention, make it clear, please, because I need to know.
To do is clear up some of the rumors, not make an accusation. But again, this goes back to I really do think that Chris Proudfoot enjoys this. I really do. I really do. I think he's enjoying it. We've all known people.
This is an opportunity for Chris to shut something down, and he's been successful at doing that because he wants to keep it from hitting the airways.
That love to have a good but love to have an argument. They love to argue about anything. You say the sky's blue, they'll tell you it's green. They just like to be contrarians. So, I just think that all he's trying to do is clear up this rumor. He just wants to know, well, what can I move forward on? What can I put to bed? And instead of just giving him a straight answer, my parents do not have him, he gives this tap dance.
Amen. He doesn't deny it. My parents had nothing to do with it. That's what I want to hear. He doesn't say that with all his yelling, shutting him down, screaming. Chris is unable to make a straight denial.
You already know, which, must be torturous if you have a child that's missing.
I think we're just trying to talk things out, and I don't even know if this should be public,
yeah,
honestly.
Okay, here.
Why shouldn't it be public?
Here's all the public knowledge you need on this deal. Law enforcement has talked to my parents, my whole family.
So what? They bothered your family, so what? They talked to them? No, I want their houses searched.
Once again, the statement is true, what law enforcement says. Just because you hear a rumor doesn't make it true.
I don't think he said it was true. I think he's just trying to...
Again, Seth is being apologetic. I don't like it. I also don't like that the Proudfoots were, the editing process, they were given the first, Katie was given the opportunity to speak first on America's Most Wanted, which also is something where I think Chris and her made sure of that. You see, Seth accepts everything, kind of like he goes with that flow, but they are very stern about probably wanting to make sure the editing process is in their favor, and they made that happen.
Clarify.
That's not clarifying. No, stop. No, stop sitting here trying to defend his action. Stop.
Okay.
The fact that
everybody's apologetic to him. I don't get it. Because Seth has a right to ask these kinds of questions. If he heard something, let's talk about it. Again, no denial from Chris Proudfoot that his parents were involved.
I'm trying to squash the rumor. We're both here. Squashing the rumor. Seth, there is no rumor. My parents were not with.
There is no rumor. You just told us there was a rumor. It's a rumor. Yes, it's no rumor. There is no rumor because that indicates that he actually knows it's factual. There's something to it. It's not a rumor. Did you hear that? There is no rumor. I agree it's not a rumor. In my opinion only, by the way.
Katie,
There is a rumor. There has been a rumor going around social media that I've seen it in my questions in the comment section. So just to be clear, Chris Proudfoot is going to say that his parents do not have Sebastian.
on Sunday.
That's all I'm doing, Chris.
No, you're causing a problem because you know damn good and well where my parents were at their house on Sunday night. They
On Sunday night? How about Monday morning?
weren't near Katie. They weren't near Sebastian. And if you got a problem, all you got to do is pick up the phone and call her. Be an adult. Be a responsible adult. And just call her.
Chris. Can you hear me, Chris?
Oh, I can hear you.
Because all I'm hearing is anger and attitude from you. What I'm trying
And you should, Seth. You should. Because what you're doing is bullshit and you know it.
So this is how he talks to another adult. So again, I'm just going to ask this question. How did Sebastian feel in this household?
Yeah, exactly.
Holy moly.
Stop.
Okay,
People are
all right.
talking over each other.
Enough.
Seth, go, and then Chris, go. Please, Seth, and then Chris. Thank you.
Chris, a unified front squashes rumors together. That's all I am stating.
Okay, Chris.
This is a rumor floating around, and I would like us to squash it.
Yeah, I think that is a great rumor to try to squash. That one's on Facebook, and the rumor is actually that about your mom, her car being parked at like Worshams,
Yes.
and him getting in.
Okay, so here's the answer. The final answer to this.
It's not just an online rumor because people have driven up to me and personally spoken
Oh, yeah.
about this.
Okay,
That's right.
ladies and gentlemen, can I make the statement?
I wish
This is very simple. This conversation has nothing to do on social media. You want to have
Tell us that she wasn't at Worships. You're not telling us that.
this conversation, Seth? You call me, you get Heather, you get Chloe on the phone.
that's
Hell, I'll do you one better, and I will get Bobby and Carter on the phone, and we'll all sit down and have this little fucking powwow.
Carter, yeah. Great. Get law enforcement involved who are on the wrong track, who for 3 days treated this as a runaway case despite the shoes are there, everything. You see, his intention is to get people to talk to him in person, far away from the public. That is why he's on all of these social media channels. Not just because he likes to talk. He's using this as an act. He's inserting his personality into a case to sidetrack and get people from examining what actually took place. And they're both doing it. Chris was in Memphis at work. The alibi immediately.
You can hear the clapping. That's Chris Proudfoot clapping, emphasizing this point. So what did Sebastian feel like? Because to me, I'm like finding this very hard to listen to. It's very, very hard to listen to.
we're not going to have a powwow like that. But I would
Well, then guess what?
the situation, and I would love for it to be private because I believe a lot of what is happening
Why?
right now should not be
You
public.
see, this is exactly the problem. They're all falling for it. So Chris's tantrums, they have the right effect for him.
So explain to me why you don't want Bobby and Carter involved.
I didn't.
I wouldn't want them involved. I wouldn't want Craddock involved either. And Seth has already told us, no, my son is not here. They haven't done their job. They need to do their job. They need to not sit down with Seth and explain a bunch of stuff because they need to get busy and ask the right questions and revisit this case from the get-go, from the beginning.
Say I didn't want Bobby and Carter involved. I said I was referring to your tone, which is very angry.
Oh, I'm very pissed.
I know that.
You have no right to be.
I think we just all need to take a breath because no one is accusing anyone of anything. We are trying to dispel things.
There's a
Because in
rumor.
turn, dispelling these things will
You're
take
so full of
some
shit.
of the BS off of you.
Wow.
That was uncalled for. And Chris, I mean, I do understand your anger, but I know these ladies. I don't know Seth. I just know what I've seen. But
Well, the so-called ladies are playing both sides pretty much. So you're so full of, yeah, I agree, but not in this case. I mean, not necessarily. This doesn't have anything to do with this question that he still hasn't denied. He hasn't denied that his mom could have been seen that morning at Worshams.
These ladies are not full of shit.
I didn't say they're full of shit. I was referring to Seth being full of shit with his comments.
Well,
Wow.
that doesn't help matters.
I thought he said that they are. You are so full of. But he knows how to, backtrack.
He doesn't. So when you brought him on the show and he wants to start this shit, that isn't going to answer question.
Hear how belligerent this is. Peter Hyatt called it. He called it before we saw this side of Chris Proudfoot. Before we saw this side of Chris Proudfoot publicly, which is, kudos to Trish and Web Sleuth Slides. They kept the conversation going. She kept the conversation going. We got to see this side, and he knew he was on camera, on TV. He knew this was being aired. So, what is he like when he's not on the air?
Worse.
I thought intermittent fasting was fake until I saw this.
Shut up. One moment.
When he's not on the air. We're going to continue on with this in just a second. I just need to catch my breath for a minute. Let me check in with chat. Marcia says he doesn't really care about finding Sebastian. It's so sad. Ren says he sleeps at the RV though. Lovely says Chris Proudfoot needs a padded cell. Miss Nunya says whoop-de-doo. Cheryl says respect that why you don't give anyone respect. Hey Sirius Black, good to see you. Mike says that Chris Proudfoot stinks. Deb says,
I didn't.
no, don't pat it. Show about this padded cell. Amber says they don't want anyone where Sebastian was last seen. I think.
Yeah.
Jamal says energy shots. Really, it's been 2 months since that's law enforcement. He knows for sure there's no chance of finding anything. I don't know. I showed some information during the live stream I did earlier that shows that kids with autism have survived in the wilderness longer than that. So I think there is still a chance.
Mm-mm.
Hey, Jesus loves me. Hey, Mrs. Chat GPT-4. Good to see you. Donna Cricket says that she agrees with you, or he agrees with you. Teresa says if he ran away and run outside the house, the dogs wouldn't have picked up a scent. Well, 3 of the dogs did pick up something. They followed something to that pond, and that's why they drained that pond. Brain hearts for Sebastian. Tara said these people are more worried about arguing than they are finding this child.
Move on.
This is why, I think a spokesperson would. Where is Katie? Yeah, where is Katie? I would bet you that she's sitting next to Chris.
Yeah.
But that's my guess.
Yes.
I don't know that. Obviously, I'm not a soothsayer or a mind reader, but my best guess is she was right there.
Right.
Ren says he left the house and I don't know about that. I do think he ran out. I do. I think
he didn't.
The household was uncomfortable. Energy shot says not if there's evidence in the house. Cricket says, why does Chris speak for Katie too? He wasn't there. Yeah, I know. Leslie says, why is Chris coming across as the biological father? And Energy Shot says 25% is huge sometimes. Yeah, in this case, I think it's massive. Teresa says he thinks he's intimidating. I find him to be. I do find him. I would be afraid. Maria says Chris does not.
It's pretty sad that he intimidates people, that people are being intimidated. But I mean, what does that tell us about, society?
I want Sebastian found, in my opinion, Katie either. Okay, so please don't add each other. Don't. If you want to have an argument, go do it somewhere else, not in my chat. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to dig into that comment that Chris Proudfoot made to Seth regarding if he wanted to find Sebastian, he would need to go to the church. And Chris Proudfoot's going to address what was said. So let me just fast forward here.
Okay, so I don't need to hear any of this. Let's go back. You see, this is what I wanted you guys to hear, how Seth is hopefully now on the right path where he no longer you know where he cowers to Chris, in my opinion. So that was pretty bad. That's how they got away with it for so long, because yep. Let me
Travel for less with Agoda.
wait
Save on.
one moment. Thank you for your patience, guys.
Spoke with Sebastian. The next morning, when I went in his room, he wasn't in his bed.
She learned. When I woke him up for school, he wasn't there. Her script is down, man. And she memorized it. And I think they sat over that script for a long time to where she would not. There are not many ums. There are a few like it's there, but it's a lot less, because you know why? She says whenever she needs to get back in her script, and she's staying on script for the most part.
When I went in his room, he wasn't in his bed. After a minute or two, when I couldn't find him, I called Chris and I said I can't find Sebastian. He's not in the house.
He wasn't in his bed. After a minute or two, before she said 1 minute flat, she realizes that makes absolutely no sense. So she says a minute or two, which is kind of vague, but she needs to be within the less than 3 minute timeline, because at 6:03 she already called Chris and she woke up at 6. So she's trying to make it sound like she looked a little bit longer, but a minute or two is still, that's still nothing.
I got off of work and I had a text message from Sebastian's stepfather.
And I said, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but Sebastian is missing.
It was, don't get mad, but no, he's softening it. They worked hard on this script for America's Most Wanted. They got this down well.
Headed straight over to their house.
I started driving through the neighborhood. I was panicking. I was looking everywhere. Like, where is he? What happened? Did he go with someone? Did someone take him? By the time I pulled into the school, Christopher was already telling me to turn around because the authorities were on their way.
The next morning when I went in his room, he was in his bed. After a minute or two, when I couldn't find him, not when she was searching, but she's telling us what she wasn't able to do. I called Chris and I said, I can't find Sebastian. He's not here, was what she said first, right? In previous interviews. He's not in the house. I started driving through the neighborhood. Did she drive through the neighborhood? She went pretty fast. I saw the video. I was panicking. I was looking everywhere. You don't need to tell me you were panicking if your child is missing. Why do you still feel the need to let us know that? I was looking everywhere. She didn't stop at any time. How did you look everywhere? Did you go through people's houses? Did you knock on doors? Did you yell his name with your windows up? When somebody tells us I was looking everywhere, I looked everywhere, it's telling us do not search anymore. It's already covered. Case closed. look outside the search radius. Like, where is he? What happened? Did he go with somebody? Did somebody take him? She's suggesting already what she wants the narrative to be. By the time I pulled into the school, Christopher was already telling me to turn around because the authorities were on their way, not on the way, our way, on their way, because there is a distancing language here. They are doing their thing. This is not our thing. We don't have a connection to that. There is us, our little game, and there is what they are going to do. And she's not saying help was on the way, because she views them as authorities and she was scared of them. She had to come up with an act. She had to portray the mother of a child who ran away, and she had to act like she didn't know where he was. She views law enforcement as a threat at this particular point, not as somebody, a team of people that's coming to help, but much rather an authority that is going to be in charge. And I have to get ready for them. I have to be on my best behavior and my most innocent behavior. Now, there's going to be a part that I haven't transcribed. I will do it the next.
Were on their way.
They used helicopters, they used drones, they used ATVs, horseback.
An extensive search didn't yield one significant lead or even a glimpse of the boy on any doorbell cam video. Days later, investigators combed through a landfill, still saying they had found nothing.
We have nothing. We just have speculations. We get criticized. The father gets criticized. Law enforcement's been criticized.
Yeah,
Online sleuths are
I went over that, right?
really analyzing videos and creating their own theories.
Sebastian is putting something in his pocket.
Surveillance footage from a neighbor shows two people outside of Sebastian's house that night. Something happened.
And again, listen to this. They are very dismissive. They are not getting into any questioning of the Proudfoots. They're actually dismissing online sleuths. And somebody said Sebastian put something in his pocket. So what? Probably was a napkin. Green hoodie, all of the stuff. Christina Candle, is that her name? She's right. I mean, something happened. But this sounds already, you have something completely ridiculous about him putting something in his pocket, and then something very significant right afterwards about the lights. So first you get something stupid, and then people are likelier to dismiss something very important. So I have absolutely no doubt that Chris Proudfoot was in constant contact with the people from AMW and probably told them, listen, we get so much hate, and can you please make sure with the editing, and who's going to go first, me or Seth? Us or Seth? And he was probably very proactive in terms of getting, things to make him look good. And that's why I said before, Seth, you need to, it's, I know he needs to live on hope, and he has only his son on his mind, but it's very, very unfortunate what a disservice AMW has done. And it's a huge, and again, the real John Walsh, the one who started this program, was hugely successful with it for decades, and who still was very outspoken about the Brian Laundrie's family. He would have never allowed these people to use his channel, his program, as a propaganda machine. He was always like that. He was very involved in cases. That's what made him so popular and so successful. But now, I guess they've been canceled, and he wants his son Callahan to have something to fall back on, or, so now all of a sudden it's like this watered down. I don't even know what it is. It's now called AMW Missing Persons, but, the most wanted are right there, dude. So, wow, is all I can say. She's getting better, but she can still not hide. And when she skips these time frames, that is very significant. But it's not as telling as it would be if she actually revisited the 2 hours between when they came home and when Sebastian was supposed to go to bed but wouldn't.
That night, something.
And she said, we laid down. And she heard a noise, so she knew he wasn't in his bed. Gotta go to bed. He was supposed to be in his bed, right?
Happened.
Tonight marks 1 year since Sebastian Rogers disappeared near Beach High School in Sumner County.
My life is not the same without my son. He's not here. And he's somewhere. Someone has him.
This year has been the worst nightmare I could have imagined to come alive.
This year has been the worst nightmare I could have imagined to come alive. Sebastian is dead. But now he's coming to life through all of the people. She couldn't have imagined anybody caring about him. She couldn't have imagined that this case would be interesting, because they have been able to shut down all the neighbors, everybody in the area, and that's why they assumed the general public would never even hear about this case. And yeah, I mean, how many times is it a 15-year-old boy that has captured just such an audience of people who were wanting to know what happened to him?
Just wants whoever has him. Just give him back. It's my son.
Well, let's see. Let's see, people.
In today's video, I interviewed the mother and stepfather of Sebastian Rogers, a 15-year-old who vanished from Hendersonville, Tennessee on February 26th of 2024. He vanished and hasn't been seen since.
Although he doesn't like to be dirty, it's kind of funny because he also doesn't have awareness, because if you look, he's got chocolate milk on his face because he didn't wipe it off at breakfast. It's funny like that.
Can you recap the overall story of Sebastian's disappearance? Kind of walk through that day.
Sunday, the day before he went missing.
You see, she makes sure the day before, but now she didn't say Sebastian. This is Chronicles of Olivia one more time. The day before Sebastian went missing. The day before he went missing. And there she said Sunday. Now she avoids saying Sunday. Now it's only the February 25th, because she's going to have to say that Chris was in Memphis at work. And he couldn't have been at work on a Sunday.
We got up and, fun fact, I made breakfast that morning. We had a good time. We were laughing, we were joking.
he talked to family on the phone during breakfast to brag. We went and picked up our niece. I got a call and asked if I could go and pick her up, and I did. And so we went.
And was asked, who asked you to pick her up? Chris.
We went to BJ's. Had a good time there. He ate a colossal popcorn. Came home to put groceries away because we bought snacks because
Snacks.
He's 18 and snacks. We went to the bowling alley, and then from there we went to dinner. Came home.
She didn't say Texas Roadhouse this time, but she wanted to talk about Texas Roadhouse here because it seemed like a nice thing to do, right? A nice treat for Sebastian because she's a caring mother, right?
He took out the trash because that's his chore. He takes the can to the end of the driveway. About 9 o'clock, told him to go to bed. He'd come out of his room where he was playing. He said, "All right, good night, Mama. Good night, puppies. Love you." And went to bed. He was doing something in his room because about an hour later I heard some noise and I was like, "I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep."
I don't care what you're doing in there, but go to sleep. An hour later, she's skipping time here all the time.
And about midnight, I got up and I went to bed.
You see, we laid down. She didn't. At 9, at least not at 9.
And 6 o'clock, I went to wake him up for school Monday morning. And that's when he went here.
She's avoiding also to say 6 o'clock here because she doesn't want to be pressed on time. That she woke up at 6 and she called Chris at 6:03.
What was...
Take a look at my body.
Oh, Jesus.
It's easier than you think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go.
Going through your mind at that point, like, what were the feelings that you were feeling? To censor myself? Holy freaking crap, this can't be happening. Where is my kid? Choice words were used. Where the F is he? I had looked through the house for him because it was typical for him to get.
I had already called Chris. Yes, I know. That's the first thing she did. She didn't look. She went straight to the phone and called Chris.
Up and come and rummage for snacks and things like that. And he likes to dip behind the walls and watch, and then he comes out after I come back and he likes to scare me. But after I looked, and I mean, mind you, all of this took place in like 1 minute flat.
1 minute flat. Now it's a minute or two. Can't stretch it too much.
But I didn't see him in his room. I looked all over. I ran through the whole house. I looked out all the doors and windows, and I was like hollering his name. And I picked up the phone and I called my husband, and I said,
Through all the doors, she looked everywhere, right? In a minute flat.
"I can't find him." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "He's not in this effing house."
Has she used Sebastian's name yet? Here she does twice in a sentence.
"I can't find our son." And
our son.
I jumped in my car and I drove around the neighborhood and I drove over by the school, and he's already at this point I was hysterical and I was crying and I was screaming. And
you see, now it's only panicking because she gets Chris Proudfoot's hint, you're overdoing it, girl.
He was
three-way.
He three-wayed law enforcement and was telling them our son is.
She didn't bother with the three-way right here. And she avoids who called law enforcement. She's saying Christopher was already telling me to turn around. But in reality, The timestamp was 6:32 and some change when she was already turned around, and he called law enforcement at 6:33. So at 6:32, unless the timestamp is not correct, he wouldn't have told her. And does she mention she was on the phone with Chris during that time? No. Let's continue.
That's the next day, and we don't know what's going on. And he was like, go back to the house. They're on their way. And I drove back to the house. And 20 days later, we haven't found him.
What a difference, right? Always notice how sensitive these areas are that she skips.